So we woke up in the morning on the last day. We didn't really have any food left. So we were quite tired, quite weak, hadn't really been sleeping very well.
We knew we were getting close to land. And then strangely, one of these shearwaters came down and landed on Ben's oar. It was kind of strange. It was eerie, it was like an omen or something. And as I was looking out of nowhere, really, appeared just this massive wave, a huge wall of white water.
We didn't have any life jackets on. The cabin door was open.
Took a deep breath and this wave just demolished us.
I did genuinely think that we probably would die here. There just, it didn't seem to be any way out.
Initially, I read something in the paper about a guy who rode the Pacific solo, and we started looking into ocean rowing, and I kind of got quite, on borderline obsessed with it. There was this race being organised across the Indian. It got nearer the time, and we kept emailing the guy who was in charge, and he eventually sort of said, "Look, there are only 2 boats officially who are paid, so we could still do it, but I can't afford to put on a safety boat, but I'll cut your race fee." I asked Ben and he was like, "Yeah, let's do it, it's cheaper." And we kind of kept a bit quiet about the safety boat to friends and family. We just carried on and we thought it really will be an adventure now.
James and done some investigating on where to find a boat, and there was one for sale, and we went there one day, looked at the boat, had very little idea what we were looking for, but it looked fantastic.
They purported to have all the equipment on board and everything was, in relatively good shape, so we just said, yeah, we just bought it. We haven't seen it in the light yet, but it's looking pretty cool. Wicked. These are the rowing positions. Yeah, it's a bit crappy, it's a second-hand boat, obviously. So again, we're really, both of us are very impractical, really, if I'm honest. So we started out just by cleaning it a lot. We clean it and we pack everything up and we'd unpack it and we'd just look at it.
But it was a very rapid learning curve over about 6 weeks, from not knowing what a different type of screw was to sort of having to put everything together.
She's a beauty.
Solid.
She's a beauty. So this is going to be home for
4 months.
For 4 months.
Neither of us had ever really rowed before, so that was a bit of an issue.
I'd never been to sea before, and rowing itself, more specifically, I'd never done any rowing in my life.
This is the transport to the loo.
I think a lot of people looked at us, at both of us, in the years leading up to it, and genuinely thought that there was no way that we could do it because they knew us.
That'll explode, won't it? Should do.
Is it fizzy? Yeah, that's fizzy.
It's fizzy, isn't it? Bugs fizz?
Yeah.
They thought that maybe even if we did get to the start line, we probably wouldn't be able to do it. So I think there was an element of wanting to prove people wrong, which was a big motivation.
So we want it there. So to be given the opportunity to do something like this, it's a fantastic privilege. And thank you to everyone who's helped us get here.
May God bless her and all who row in her.
managed to get up to a place called Geraldton, which is about 400 kilometres north of Perth, and yeah, we had 2 weeks to get it ready.
Hi.
What's happening here?
I'm just drilling like a real bloke. Just drilling some random holes. I'm hoping for the best. There's the kit, which we've got to get on. 150 litres of ballast water. Food's on, water's on. They're the oars, which sadly we're going to have to pull at some stage. And we're nearly ready.
It was quite nerve-wracking because we're about to set off and row across an ocean. We've never practiced in the boat. We've never really spent more than a night. We've never spent a night at sea, to be honest.
The Geraldton Marina, where it all starts, in 4 days.
How do you feel, Ben, seeing Rob get into that boat in a second?
Quite nervous, actually.
So there's another guy planning on doing it solo, roughly the same time as us, from the same town, and we saw him off out of the harbour in Geraldton.
I am still here.
Wrong way, Rob!
He came back after a couple of days. He had very bad food poisoning, I think, and he said, it's bad at night. You know, it really picks up out there. It's really tough. And he said, I think very soon someone's going to die rowing an ocean.
And so we woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we got in the boat and we rowed out to the marina.
I was nervous because I knew how little I knew and I knew how little Ben knew. But I was sort of looking at the GPS thinking, I don't really know how that works.
Pretty stormy out here. 20 knot wind, maybe 25. We're looking at sort of, I'd say 20 meter swells here. It doesn't look like that on the camera. It looks more like 2 or 3, but I can guarantee you these are some big motherfucking waves coming at us. Look at this one here.
So each wave, you're trying to line the boat up with the wave. And the wind is helping you as well if it's coming from behind. The tricky bit could be if it was coming pure easterly, it would catch the cabin and spin you out of control and you'd be rowing with one oar so that you were lined up again. It could just be a relentless battle.
Last night we were rowing on, off, we were sleeping a bit, going backwards. Whenever we tried to row, we couldn't point west, we couldn't point north, we couldn't point south. It's just a bit of a nightmare. We're managing to get a bit of west now, but it's still a struggle.
When it started to get extremely windy, the wind would sort of take the top off the wave, and so that's when you found that the waves would start coming over the boat.
This is unbelievable.
You look like you've been put through a washing machine.
There's some pretty big waves out here. It's quite difficult.
Right.
The wind's really picked up in the last hour.
The sea took on like a whole personality of its own. It could punish us and reward us in equal measures. It felt like a god or something, something that needed appeasing. You know, you'd be praying to the sea.
It is 9 a.m. 29th of April, and a massive thunderstorm happening outside now. Hi James! How's it going out there? It's raining!
I didn't like being wet. It's just the idea that you can never get dry again. No matter what you do.
You were constantly wet and constantly cold, and there was no way to get dry. You'd get in the cabin and you'd try your best, but you were always damp, and the cabin was always damp, and the mattress was wet, and your clothes were wet. So very quickly we developed agonising salt sores on our backsides.
That is my arse. It's agony. Sorry, but that's what it looks like. You should try and imagine what it feels like.
Because we've been rowing all the time, we had this kind of claw hand, where your hand just fixes in this like position, and you kind of spasms occasionally, and it's kind of really painful.
It was okay when you were actually rowing, but then when you went into the cabin to have a sleep and then you came back out again, it was very difficult to open up your hands. In the first 5 minutes of rowing, it was very, very difficult to grab, to sort of hold onto the oars at all.
It's day 22, and all is not well on the boat. The water maker's broken. The hatches are leaking and are full of water. The steering system doesn't work. So we've been going around in circles. We are getting spun out of control in the middle of the night. Fuck. But you know, I still think we're on for the record. Let's try and get the BBC. Okay, ready?
Ngày nào cũng tụ tập cùng nhau để cùng cảm nhận sự vui mừng và hân hoan của tuổi thanh xuân. Vì nhà họ ở thuê phải sửa lại.
We've been captive here in the caves of Afghanistan for
Help!
years.
If you ever get this message, please help! We are currently trying to pick up the BBC World Service, and the only thing we can pick up is the call to prayer, which we're picking up perfectly. It's great. On power anchor, moving slowly back to Australia.
It's quite hard to film this guy. The white-bellied sea duck, the ocean rower. Where have you gone, sea duck? There he is. Very different from the storm petrels, who are very small little guys who sort of dance over the water, eating little plankton. We're nearly, 800 miles out to sea, and these guys are still with us. You a fan of the white-bellied sea duck?
Yeah, it's great to have some company out here. Because to be quite frank with you, I'm getting bored of yours. How's it going?
Oh, great! Yeah, really good. Really good.
We're going to speedy packing after this shift. What's the distance?
We're doing 0.7 knots.
We had, I think, 2 or 3 of these very long periods where the weather died out completely. For me personally, and I know it's slightly different for James, but these were probably the worst times. I find it extremely frustrating not being able to move anywhere.
I tried to not care too much about how far we went. It doesn't matter if you've gone backwards 2 miles or forwards 50 miles. It's just another day at sea. It doesn't matter. When I was 14, I had a very rare illness, which basically left me completely paralysed, head to foot, in a coma. The illness is called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and it's a disease that basically affects the motor nervous system, the motor neurons. It was a kind of waking coma, as it were. Like, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't see or breathe, but I was conscious. A minute will seem like 10, and 10 will seem like an hour. Eventually, I felt like I was gonna die soon. Gradually, it kind of came back, and maybe after a year or so, I was kind of walking around unassisted. But it never fully came back, and my feet remain paralysed. I think the rowing, I wanted to experience freedom again. People said, you've got to be sensible and remember, who you are and what's happened to you, and you shouldn't go and take risks like this. But I thought, absolutely, I think I'm prepared to pay the ultimate penalty just to have a taste of that freedom. I don't think anything should be off limits to anyone.
What are you trying to do here, Ben?
This is drying out the bottom, at the same time stretching the back.
Genius. But quite weird.
We're in about 6,000 metres of water here, so if I do drop the camera...
Yeah. Let's hope that shark we saw on day 5 hasn't been following us all the way. Just waiting patiently. Woo! How is it?
Oh, it's amazing!
And there's just this feeling that you're floating kind of on top of this huge expanse of water. It was a lovely feeling. It was almost like you were flying.
Thanks.
I remember someone sent a message saying the stock market's crashing again, carnage, and I thought, I don't care. It means nothing to me. The only thing that mattered was I don't know what the weather was like, and what was happening in our tiny little 23-foot world.
Evening, Benjamin.
Evening, James.
Can you point her a bit southwest so we can get the sunset in?
Can we please talk in right and left, please?
Beautiful.
Is that better?
Not too far south. You're completely ruining the shot. Oh, bring it back. Bring it back. It's stunning, isn't it? I mean, absolutely stunning. It's a great day. Nights like this, it's just great to be out here. It's just beautiful. It's a very light wind, a little showering of rain. Never felt further away from home. I don't want to go back. I'm very happy here. Beautiful. Secretly rowing us in circles. Look at myself in the mirror. We don't actually have a mirror on board, so you have to use the camera to. I'm quite tired there. Sorry? You look quite tired actually. Yeah. Well, because I've been doing all the rowing.
We were getting increasingly tired. It was becoming increasingly more difficult to get yourself out of bed at the beginning of a shift and to get on that seat and to start putting those oars. We probably weren't getting the amount of food that we needed relative to the amount of exercise and exertion we were doing on a daily basis. I think it was around this time that we started to drink the olive oil. I've never drunk olive oil before, and so I don't know what it would normally be like, but I remember taking a swig of the olive oil and it was just like, it was exactly what your body needed. I started to think a lot about things like what would the first meal be, the first drink, what that cold beer would taste like. At the same time, we tried not to get too carried away with it. We didn't want to take anything for granted because the sea can change so quickly. Mauritius is surrounded by a coral reef, but the north of the island you have one quite wide entrance point.
However, there's a very strong southerly current that was preventing us getting to the north. And we had a chat on the phone to the weather router and he said, you can try and come in to the south. There's a gap in the reef. Just try and turn around and come in.
About a mile out, I started to notice that we seemed to be getting very close to the breaking waves.
And as I was looking out of nowhere really, appeared just this massive wave, a huge wall of white water. Took a deep breath and this wave just demolished us. It felt like minutes, but it was seconds obviously, that I came back up and saw that the boat had been smashed to pieces.
All the oars had been snapped in half, the cabin had been destroyed. The power of the water was just quite incredible. So we let off a couple of flares.
So Ben held it away from himself, set off the flare. But he unwittingly pointed the discharge at me. So he shot me in the leg. I could see the bone and there was blood just pouring down and I started swearing at him. And, here we were after 4 months at sea together. After all this, we were going to die on the last day. It was nearly funny.
And then, almost immediately after setting off those flares, we got hit by a second wave.
I thought he was going to capsize us again, and I said, look, let's jump in. Hold on to the grab line on the side of the boat. It'll come back round, it'll self-right, and then we can get back in. and the next wave that hit us, it didn't capsize the boat. Instead, it picked the boat up and just flung it. It hurtled away from us.
We were now swimming in the water. It was getting dark. We had no life jackets on. James was bleeding quite a lot.
And I thought, this is it. Could be it. I mean, we were going to fight, but it was fearful.
So we made a decision at this point that our best option and our best chance of survival would be to try and swim to where we thought the gap in the reef was.
Yeah. On the last day, when it looked like we were going to die, I felt much happier with my lot out there than I did as a teenager, because at least I was doing something that I wanted to do. At least I was there because I chose to be there, and I was taking my fate in my own hands. To die as a teenager when you haven't chosen it, it's just been passive and you haven't done anything and lived. I wouldn't have liked to have gone then, but I would have accepted it this time round. Much more, yeah. I couldn't see exactly where the entrance to the reef was, but it was getting dark, so we decided just to swim in to the reef, take our chances. We continued ducking under these rollers as they came in, and one was coming in and we ducked under, and I suddenly felt my feet had touched something. Land.
And I came up and I remember looking back and seeing James sort of standing on the reef, sort of shouting, "We're on the reef, we're on the reef." We assumed there was probably about 300 meters of very shallow coral before it got deeper again, which would allow us to swim. So at first we thought, let's just try and walk over this 300 meters, but we very quickly realized that wasn't possible.
The coral would snap, you fall over, and then be cut in new places, and you kind of try and get up, and then you fall over and be cut again.
I sort of sensed that the tide was coming in, so I thought the best thing to do would be to wait till we had a little bit of leverage, just a couple of feet, which would allow us to swim without touching the coral.
Pausing for breath was suddenly when I felt tired, in pain, and also very cold.
I was actually extremely concerned about James because I think it might have had something to do with the cut on his leg. He was shivering uncontrollably at this stage.
Suddenly, and we knew it was going to come eventually because we were quite tuned into it, and the full moon came up, and it was amazing. It was a brilliant moment because it gave us light. We could see. I would think I was in early stages hypothermia because I started saying, I think it's giving off warmth. Can you feel the warmth of the moon? And Ben was like, no, that's hypothermia. So after some time sitting on the reef, a light appeared in the distance, and it was in the sky, and we said it's the helicopter. We're saved. Its path, it was curving round, and the beam of the light was heading straight for us, and it was lighting up all the water in front of us. And we both stood up and started waving, shouting.
We stood up and were waving, here, 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 but they just went straight past, obviously didn't see us.
I remember the sound dying down, and then as it flew round the corner and out of sight, it disappeared, and it was just the sea and us again. and then we saw a light that was obviously much closer to us.
And the light started to get closer and closer and closer. We were now on our feet, just screaming at the top of our voice.
And then this light was sweeping, and after we started shouting, it fixed on us. You know, we carried on shouting, and it got closer, and then it just stayed fixed on us. And other lights turned on, and then 2 lights, smaller lights, started moving towards us, and I knew then we were saved.
And then we saw these 2 figures. We started to see the outline of these 2 people coming closer and closer and closer. And we, you know, it was an extraordinary sight, you know, for us after all this time. But they got us off and into the boat. We were handed a towel, a clean shirt, and we were on our way.
And we powered into the hotel where everyone was waiting.
When you're out there and when you're faced with certain challenges and when you're put in certain situations where you do think that you might die, you really start to appreciate things a lot more when you get back. You start thinking of all the things in your life that you're going to change, and you start to appreciate certain things more. And it almost makes you want to do it again, so you can get that, because you lose it sometimes. You know, you lose that kind of sense.
I could hear a lot of laughter in the background as people actually saw us, because we looked pretty wild, I think. Anyone who's come close to dying just realises maybe that it's there. It's very close for everyone. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's good to keep it there within your mind all the time, because it gives the new focus to life. It's a great thing to frame your life by thinking about its end.
First few months afterwards, I said, never again do I want to go to sea. Now, after 8 months, I'm thinking, well, you know, maybe.
Yeah, I'd like to run the Pacific and the Atlantic. That'd be nice, because then you've done all 3. I don't know though. I'd like to sail them, definitely. I'd like to get back out there. I will get back out there somehow.